welcome back to my channel. It's IC Arts. I'm Irina, children's book illustrator, and today I'm super excited to take you behind the scenes of a project that's so close to my heart. That would be an ABC book for kids. Yes, that's right, it's an alphabet book, and the main characters in this book are mushrooms. I dedicated this book to my son, and it was super exciting and really adorable to see his reaction when he opened this book up and saw the note that I put in this book just for him. I'll walk you through the entire process from brainstorming the idea and the concept, and I'll give you a little detail right away. When I started working on these characters, I did not have an idea of making a book. And then we'll finish up with the very great moment when we are working on the book as illustrators or authors, is when we can hold the finished product in our hands. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's dive in. Every project starts with an idea. When I started working on the characters for this book, I was very inspired and motivated to create some characters that would not be animals or humans even, because the majority of my work involves drawing kids, their parents, so people and animals. I wanted to do something different from my commissions and even from the work I normally draw. I began by brainstorming different themes and styles, and I was thinking, should I try everyday objects? Should I make some crazy, maybe futuristic monsters? And then make the style very whimsical. But somehow, after sketching different ideas, I played around and I just figured out for myself that I want to do the mushrooms. And I want the mushrooms to be humanized. So I wanted them to have hands and eyes. I didn't know how I would do that, but that was my decision. For every idea, I love to do research. We all do this. We collect references, right? Try to figure out what ideas we could visualize. But for this project, I went with my favorite route. I'm a huge fan of libraries, and I even love the stories of some illustrators back in the day when they didn't have that easy access to Google. They couldn't just Google any pose or reference photo they wanted to draw or use in their illustration. So what were they doing? They were going to the libraries. And a lot of illustrators back then were saying, when they were a little bit more high up, they even have some people who helped them out, and they would go to the libraries for them to collect all the information they needed for the brief. I know this is a way slower path, but I just love books. I love libraries. That's just a very big part of me. So I went to the library and I wanted to research mushrooms as they really, really are. So my idea was to collect some books that would not be somebody else's drawings. I wanted to look at the mushrooms as they do exist in nature, because I didn't, again, coming back to that, I didn't know that my illustrations would be a book. So I just started with characters. I didn't even know how many characters there would be. I placed hold for a few books, and those books really sparkled my creativity. One book I can recommend in particular would be Mushrooms of North America. Even if you're not from North America, probably the region where you live at has some similar, I would say, an encyclopedia of mushrooms. I also have another one that's an encyclopedia as it is. And what I love here is that I could see real pictures, the structure, everything, their natural habitat, so to say, of different mushrooms. And to me, that's amazing. And things like that work very well for the creativity part of my brain. And finally, after looking through the books and sketching really, really lots of mushrooms, I already tried to give them some additional details and maybe character, so I could have a better idea how those mushroom characters would look in my project. Finally, it was time for me to figure out what I was even going to do with them. I already had a lot of characters, and I wanted a project to be that could make it a possibility for me to showcase all of them. And that would really help me to draw different characters, not make my work boring. I would show different personalities, and I love that idea. So my favorite method of working with idea is associations, but if you're interested in other methods, and a lot of illustrators do use them, let me know, make another video about it. So I try to think with association, it actually what it sounds. You try to think about everything that comes into mind when you think about a certain thing. So basically, I went very easy here. Took a piece of paper, and I will share with you all the ideas that I had. So when I was thinking about mushrooms, and you can even put it in Google search, like put mushrooms and see what will come out. And what I ended up with was edible mushrooms, mushroom classification, fungal mushrooms, mushroom coffee, poisoning, health benefits, uses recipes, wild mushrooms, and right away I was thinking that there's a lot of educational stuff with mushrooms, like people want to educate yourself, like what is poisonous, what recipes you cook with mushrooms, what are the health benefits of mushrooms, and I even found something as Mushroom Council that is actually an agricultural marketing service, and if you're interested, it maintains and expands existing mushroom markets and uses, so now you know that too. Obviously, magic mushrooms, beautiful mushrooms, some mushroom guide, mushroom world, family, mushroom cloud, what do mushrooms do, mushroom hat, walk, mighty mushroom, mushroom club. So, and I had an idea of also associations, obviously, where do mushrooms grow in the forest, what we could associate with the forest, maybe some a fairy tale, but again, I realized that I have so many mushrooms I want to draw that concept is not really what I want. Now, I was thinking a good concept, by the way, I might use it in my other works, something with mushrooms in the forest. Mushrooms actually protect the forest if you like dive into that topic, and maybe there could be some topic about protection. Now, actually trees, they talk to mushrooms. They have some sort of connection underground, which enables them to do that. And I automatically imagine something like mushrooms and the telephone, like they could communicate with trees, and so mushroom phone, so to say. But in the end, I thought that, look, I have a lot of characters, and what if I just go ahead and do an ABC book? That's easy enough, and it gives me so much room for creativity, because, I mean, how many letters is there? And I could really come up with every single one of the characters according to the alphabet letter. And I guess I also always wanted to do something educational. So for me, it was a perfect decision. Then the process. Obviously, I gathered some inspiration and I created mood boards. I collected references from whatever I already had. So I only worked with whatever I had. And I tried to explore color patterns, but mostly during the work. But I would say I would show you a very messy file, which actually showcases what I tried to come up with. So we have an A as a letter, and then I wanted to think what I could possibly draw showcasing this letter. So athlete came to my mind with an apple, and then I also had an idea that I would obviously need to also showcase the words resembling that letter. And for example, the athlete, then I thought about, you know, just very simple ones like ant, like apple. I was thinking maybe I should do an actor, but then I figured it's not that simple to just showcase that he or she is an actor. And same with everything. And for some, I was really very not confused, but I had more ideas for one letter, say as F. I already knew that I probably want to do some flowers, but I also had an idea of a fairy with a frog, and so it happened that I had both. So for some letters I had two illustrations representing that. And the same happened when I drew a grandfather. I figured what would be a grandfather without a grandmother, so I had to do her too. So that's a process, and what I loved about it is that nothing was set in stone. It was very fluid. My ideas, if I had an idea, I would implement it, and it gave me freedom and creativity, and I really loved that because it was my personal project and I needed to enjoy that. Once I found out about what will be each character to represent each book of the alphabet, I started drawing them. It was an amazing process, and for that I could already gotten more references. Say if I'm drawing a scientist, I could have looked at more scientists. If I was drawing a florist, I could have done that, looking at flowers and so on and so forth. And then while I was trying to do color, I actually used the website on Adobe, which really helped me to spark my creativity. Say I would literally put in there a doctor, for example, or a scientist, and I would look at the color palettes. And by the fifth illustration, I realized that I kind of got my color palette already, because the colors were basically the same, and I just went from there. So I had a certain amount of colors. You know, when you are drawing the book, it's usually almost every single color there is, so there's not even a point having color palette. Of course, there are books who are limited, but I usually just go full force on that. But I do have a color palette, the colors that I only used for the book. And I could tell you that by seeing the artwork coming together page by page is very satisfying, and I already knew that my task was easy because I was drawing just simple characters. I would not have a background for my book, it would be white. So I was drawing them right away in large format, 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels. If we do a conversion, that's really a lot of inches right there. And I knew that what I would have what I would need to do in the end is just put everything in Photoshop and then using the guides, set my characters in there, including the lettering. And I also needed to decide what would be my book size. I kind of like the idea of the book being a little longer because I knew that I need to showcase only like one character, and the character could occupy the whole page, and then I would just use the top portion of the book for the letters. So this way I could really make my characters large. And so this was the side of the book I decided to have, and I have my own guides that help me to always make my work perfect when in print. It doesn't matter what background you have, you still need to make sure that you have a safety zone there, that your artwork is properly centered, that everything is within its margins, bleed and trim and all that stuff. So I do recommend you to really always use a guide, and there is no other way actually around it. And if you're interested about the topic of the guides, I believe one of the next videos would be that. I also have my own guides that I've made for various sizes for all the books I used to work at, and I added some more. So if you are interested in grabbing them and using them for your work, you're welcome. I believe they're not very expensive, and I've also made them for Photoshop and for Procreate, both in RGB and CMYK color modes. I find it very convenient because I draw all my artwork in RGB, and look how colorful it looks like. It actually, I would say it's been printed perfectly well. And of course in Photoshop I would convert the RGB model to a CMYK, but I would also do a little adjustments. Again, if you're interested, let me know. So the idea of having the book with white cover actually was inspired by my childhood, because in my childhood the ABC books were done in this manner, and it was just my personal preference this way. I love to see even when I draw my books, I love the vignette type of illustrations, and when I have the space on the page that is blank, it's just that my brain really likes it. I don't know, go figure. That was a bit nostalgic and logical too, because in my opinion, when we're drawing something for educational for kids, we do not want to distract them or really put our attention on too many things. So I figured the characters, which explain the letter, and the letter itself is basically all they need to see. So that's why I went with the white background. I probably guessed that I would never be able to do a white background on any commission work, so I just went with it. And here it is, the finished product. After all the hard work, seeing the book printed and holding it in my hands is really a dream come true. Each page to me is my piece of art, and I hope it brings as much joy to children as it really brought me while I was creating it. I really discovered about myself also that I love some funny elements in the books always, and these characters I consider funny, and actually it's a very rewarding part to think that this book will be held in the hands of a kid who is just started learning things in his or her world, and they would look at these characters and they would simply make them smile, and that's actually all I was aiming for. I'm also very happy to share this process with you. If you want something a little bit more detailed or specific, if you have any questions, I would be very happy to let you know. I would probably make a video about my other book projects that were a lot more complex this way, especially when it's commission work. I think that the process of creation, the book, the behind the scenes is always interesting to watch for any illustrator, because we all have our ways, and sometimes we could just simply use somebody else's advice and experience. I want to thank you so very much for being with me here today, for listening to this story of mine. And if you enjoyed this video, please put the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, definitely to see more behind the scenes content. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I would also put the link of the book in the description down below. You could also so many alsos. You could subscribe to my newsletter or go check out my website, because I have some free resources there, and I hope you will like it. Until next time, guys, keep creating and get inspired.